My name is Alexis Nazario Negron, and I am the Planning and Accountability Officer for the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. USDA's efforts in public access date back a decade ago in response to the Office of Science and Technology Policy memo issued in February 2013, titled Increasing Access to the Results of Federally Funded Scientific Research. In the handful of years following this directive, USDA released an implementation plan, issued policy, and launched PubAg, the USDA's public access system for scholarly publications, and Ag Data Commons, the USDA's catalog and repository for publicly accessible USDA-supported data. In 2022, the Office of Science and Technology Policy issued an updated memo focused on ensuring free, immediate, and equitable access to federally funded research. USDA issued Department Regulation 1020-006 and has updated the implementation plan. NIFA, like all other USDA agencies, has updated policy and terms and conditions to align with Department Regulation 1020-006. Department Regulation 1020-006 applies to all unclassified scientific research, both intramural and extramural, supported wholly or in part by the USDA, regardless of the USDA funding level or funding mechanism, including direct funding from a USDA grant or cooperative agreement active in fiscal year 2023 or beyond, any direct funding from a USDA contract signed on or after October 1st, 2022, and any direct funding agreement, including in-kind support from any USDA intramural research. This policy also applies to all USDA mission areas, agencies, and staff offices, all USDA employees who engage in scientific research during official duties, and awardees and contractors from non-USDA organizations who are engaged in USDA-supported scientific research. The research products in scope are all scholarly publications and digital scientific research data assets that arise from USDA-supported scientific research. Today's webinar will focus on how to submit scholarly publications in PubAg to meet the requirements of this department regulation. If you have not done so already, I would encourage you to visit the National Agriculture Library's webpage, which contains links to the department regulation, USDA's implementation plan, and some frequently asked questions. I'll place the link in the chat. Please put your questions in the Q&A box. However, if your question is not answered today, please look out for FAQs, which will be added to the resource page, or submit questions afterwards to the National Agricultural Library. I'll also share both of the links to do those things in the chat. Now I'm going to turn it over to Maggie from the National Agricultural Library, who will walk us through how to submit publications in PubAg.
I will be sharing my screen. Give me one moment, and then we will begin. So thank you, Alexis. Hello, everyone. My name is Maggie Faust, and today is Tuesday, October 17th. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a white woman with brown hair, and I am currently wearing a green shirt with a blue cardigan. I am with the National Agricultural Library as a public access outreach librarian. The objective of this webinar is to provide you with an awareness of the PubAg submission process and relevant useful instructions to help upload your NIFA-funded, peer-reviewed, accepted manuscripts. The agenda today contains information on public access requirements, criteria for submission to PubAg, definition of a peer-reviewed accepted manuscript, and how-tos with step-by-step instructions for submission with screenshots. After that, we'll be talking through what happens after submitting to PubAg and what to do in the event your submission is rejected followed up by opening the conversation for questions and comments at the very end. So we have a short poll to gauge your understanding of the material before we begin the webinar. There's two questions here. First one being, how would you rate your understanding of USDA public access requirements on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being very good? Second one being, how aware of the PubAg submission process are you on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being very familiar? There's a timer for 1 minute to collect answers, and we'll continue afterward. Take a moment to think and respond. Nirja and Alexis, you can launch the polls now. And we're going to give folks the full 60 seconds just so they have time to select their choice. Thank you for participating in the poll. Let's begin. Public access, as defined in the USDA Departmental Regulation, is access to information that is available to the public. Public access does not necessarily mean free for use, and restrictions for reuse or redistribution may apply. Public access requirements outline that all peer-reviewed scholarly publications and digital scientific research data assets arising from unclassified research and programs funded wholly or in part by the USDA must be made accessible to the public to the fullest extent practicable in the public access repository, PubAg. Pictured here is a screenshot of NAL's public access website with detailed information, and you can follow the link in the box to read a little bit more. There is specific criteria that needs to be met in order to submit to PubAg. The research was partially or completely USDA funded, and the article has been accepted for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. The types of documents accepted are final peer-reviewed accepted manuscripts or the final accepted article if the author has the right to submit the published version, meaning it is open access. PubAg will not accept preprints. The definition of a peer-reviewed accepted manuscript is the author's final version of a publisher-accepted peer-reviewed article. It contains the same content as the final published article, but does not include the publisher's copy editing, stylistic, or formatting edits that will constitute the final version of record that appears in a trustworthy peer-reviewed scholarly journal. There are numerous benefits of public access in open science, and among them are these three. First, it builds the facilitation of information sharing across the globe because public access encourages a central collection of NIFA-funded research to preserve findings for the future. Second, it allows us to show the impact of your USDA research by creating an information resource for scientists to research publications, in addition to NAL better managing its entire research investment. Finally, it enhances discovery and access to research outcomes and products across the entirety of USDA by creating an environment and standard of collaboration across federal departments. How do I submit my publication? You'll start by going to submit.nal.usda.gov and then log in using USDA's eAuth service as prompted. If you do not have a login, follow the links to the eAuth site to register for a customer account. You have two options for submission. You can enter the DOI assigned to your publication, or if you do not have the DOI, you can enter the information directly into the form. When selecting the funding agency, choose NIFA from the drop-down menu. Now I will begin walking you through the submission process for PubAg. There's a collection of screenshots throughout this webinar depicting the steps of submission with arrows, circles, and rectangles pointing to the most important information for your convenience. Step 1, begin your submission at submit.nal.usda.gov. You'll see this screen above with a few different options: log in via eAuth, create an eAuth account, or a link with more in-depth information about receiving eAuth assistance. eAuth is the system used by USDA to enable individual customers and employees to obtain accounts that will allow them to access USDA web applications and services via the internet. If you already have an eAuth account, you can use that to log in, or you can create a customer account at the link above and begin submitting to PubAg once your account is created. Follow the link for frequently asked questions about eAuth, as well as contact information for the eAuth help desk. These are two separate screenshots, one of the USDA eAuth registration page and the second of the eAuth login page. When registering, you'll be creating a customer account like the screenshot to the left, and then when logging in, you'll select customer like the screenshot in the right. Step 2. Once logged in, start your submission with or without the DOI. If submitting with DOI, most of your article's information will populate from Crossref. Pictured here is the submission page with options to submit with DOI or submit without DOI. Step 3, enter the DOI assigned to the publication to populate the form with citation information from the publisher. Verify the title and DOI are correct by clicking the hyperlink. The hyperlink will direct you to the publication. Not all fields are mandatory, and mandatory fields are marked with a red asterisk. Mandatory fields include title, author name, funding agency, journal name, abstract, manuscript, and checking the box to certify that the article is peer-reviewed. Step 4, review authors listed and confirm affiliations. Verify that the information populated correctly corresponds to your manuscript's information and adjust within the fields as needed. Again, the information is populated from Crossref and may need some adjustments to ensure accuracy. Seen here are screenshots of the page. Again, here are some screenshots of input fields within the submission site. Here we have journal name, ISSN, date of publication, volume, issue, as well as first and last page. Step 5, if you do not have a DOI, you can enter the citation information directly into the form. Fill in fields with corresponding information, Pictured here are the title, publication authors, ORCID, and affiliations field on the submission page. This is a continuation of step 5 with expanded screenshots. The submitter will input information into relevant fields. Pictured here is journal name, ISSN, date of publication with a close-up of the calendar widget to select the date. Then we have volume, issue, and first and last page. On to step 6. Within the agency name drop-down menu, select National Institute of Food and Agriculture, NIFA. Step 7. Enter your award or grant number in the designated field. NIFA grantees, add your award and grant number, but do not input anything for project number. Finding your award and accession number can be a little bit tricky, so here is a brief overview of where to look. If you are reporting a publication funded by a NIFA competitive grants program, please provide your 14-digit award number in this format. 4 digits, 5 digits, 5 digits in the award and grant number field. Your NIFA award number can be found in both your award face sheet, field 1, or in the information at the top of your report project initiation. Here's a screenshot of what a sample NIFA award face sheet looks like with a circle around where you would find your award number. Continuing from the last slide, here is a screenshot of a sample report project initiation with a box around where you can find the award number. Finding your accession number. If you are reporting a publication funded through one of our capacity programs, such as Hatch or McIntyre Stennis, please report your 7-digit accession number in the award grant number field. The NIFA assigned accession number can be found in the NIFA reporting system entry for your project or program. Included is a screenshot of where the accession number is located within the NIFA reporting system. Step 8, add the abstract to the submission. Sometimes Crossref does not have an abstract, so the DOI won't populate the field and you will need to input manually. Pictured here is a screenshot of the abstract field. Step 9, upload manuscript and supplementary materials if needed, and check the box to certify the article is peer reviewed. This is what the submission site will show when you are on this step. There are specific requirements for manuscript uploading, and they are as follows. 1 file per entry, 200 megabyte size limit, and allowed file types of PDF, doc, docx, and txt. Supplementary file upload requirements are as follows. 5 files maximum, 200 megabyte size limit, and allowed file types of PDF, docx, txt, XLSX, JPEG, JPEG, GIF, PNG, and TIFF. There's a checkbox at the bottom of the site that asks you to certify your article is peer reviewed. Step 10. Final screen of the submission process, and the submission is complete. You will see this green banner and the submission form will redirect you to the original submission site, submit.nal.usda.gov. After your submission has been successfully received, you'll receive an email from NAL PubAg Curator for every submission, which will be sent to the email address associated with your eAuth account. In the event any additional information is needed, you'll receive an email from a reviewer asking you to send the needed information. If your submission is accepted, you'll receive another email with the permanent URL for your work, which is a unique persistent identifier that NAL assigns to manuscript records within PubAg. Sometimes submissions get rejected from PubAg, and here are a few of the most common reasons. One reason is that the manuscript you submitted isn't a type that is accepted, meaning it might be a preprint, a book chapter and not a journal article, a letter to the editor, or it is not peer-reviewed. Another reason could be some information included doesn't accurately identify the publication. The submitted manuscript doesn't match the DOI or the citation information. Finally, your manuscript may have been a duplicate submission and PubAg won't accept it into the system because there's already one within the repository. In the event any of this happens, you'll have to re-upload your manuscript or resubmit with the correct information. Feel free to send questions to the NAL Ask a Question form, and someone will respond within 5 days of receipt. Now that we've reached the conclusion, there's an exit poll to gauge your understanding of the material and interest in learning more. There are 3 questions here. First one being, how would you rate today's webinar overall on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being very good? Second one being, following this webinar, how confident do you feel about submitting publications to PubAg on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being very confident? Last one, what would you like to learn more about regarding PubAg and USDA public access requirements, with a few multiple choice answers? There's a timer for 1 minute to collect answers, and afterward we will open the webinar for questions, so please take a moment to think and respond. Alexis and Nirja, you can launch the polls now. And I think we can give folks about 1 minute and 30 seconds for this one, because there are 3 questions as opposed to 2. Thank you for participating in the poll. In accordance with federal civil rights law and U.S. Department of Agriculture civil rights regulations and policies, the USDA, its agencies, offices, and employees, and institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, including gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family or parental status, income derived from a public assistance program, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. Not all bases apply to all programs. Remedies and complaint filing deadlines vary by program or incident. This slide contains the link with contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. Language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request, and anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed here. Thank you for joining me today. Feel free to send me an email and I'll connect you with the information, or you can reach out to the NAL contact form and someone will get back to you. Like I mentioned before, most questions are answered within 5 business days of receipt. Attendees, you can now use the Q&A feature to ask questions. Alexis and Christina, could you join in? They are going to be available to answer your questions about NIFA context and USDA public access policy. I will be fielding the incoming questions, and I can answer questions specifically about the training materials. If there are some questions we don't get to, you can expect a document follow-up after this. So I see one question from Addie Thompson. For large collaborative project manuscripts, would the expectation be that the responsibility for PubAg upload falls on A, the corresponding author, B, the lead author, C, whoever on the paper has relevant awards and grants, leading to potentially multiple submissions to PubAg per publication, or D, the authors need to figure it out on themselves on a per publication basis and compile all relevant info into one submission. Christina or Alexis, do you have a specific answer for
them? Hi, everyone. For this, I would say that this is part of the reporting requirements, so it might fall to whoever is reporting on the awards and grants. Of course, any of the authors can submit to us, and we have processes in place that will address any duplicate entries that come into the PubAg system.
Thank you. And I see another question from Mengjun Hu. How soon are publications expected to be entered after acceptance? Sometimes publications may come after the expiration of grants. Christina, I think you also might be a good one to answer this question.
So the current policy is that they need to be available in PubAg within 12 months of publication, or 12 months of publication. But this is going to be changed. We're reviewing, I've mentioned in one of the other answers, there is we're reviewing public access policies and plan to update them. There's an implementation plan that you can review on the NAL website.
Thank you. And I see I have another question by Sadiq Abukar. If the article is not open access, can I upload the author accepted manuscript without the publisher typesetting and/or proofing? Or is it something that has to be in line with the agreement with the publisher, i.e. wait until the embargo period is over?
Yes, actually, we ask that you submit the author accepted manuscript and not the publisher's version, which includes their typesetting and proofing, as you point out.
And I see another question from Anonymous. How does this requirement relate to journal copyrights? For example, I published in October 2022 and signed away the copyright. Can I put it on PubAg?
Some of this is still, again, in discussion with our final or updated policies as they start to come out. But I would say that you can submit to PubAg, and in many cases, we are unable to make that publisher's copyrighted version available, but we'll have a citation available for people to find and the DOI, which points to the version on the publisher's site. So please still submit to the PubAg system.
And I see another question from Tisha Mentek. Is the submission workflow going to be the same once Figshare is fully implemented?
So I don't work with the data side of things, which is where Figshare is going to be hosting the Ag Data Commons datasets and catalog. So I would suggest checking with the Ag Data Commons team about how their submission workflows might be changing, and there will be updates and information, of course, provided through the NAL websites and also through their newsletter that goes out through GovDelivery.
And I would also add on that you can ask that question in the NAL Ask a Question form. And I see another question from Susie Teitmeyer. How many of the authors need to be affiliated with the grant or USDA for the manuscript to be accepted into PubAg?
Just one. So if there's any funding, and that could be a USDA employee, for example, or it could be someone who's received a grant from USDA, but not all authors, even just one author, the manuscript should be submitted to PubAg.
And I'm seeing another question from an anonymous attendee. To clarify, we are not supposed to upload the copy edited version of the manuscript. Instead, we need to upload the accepted Word document version of the manuscript as a PDF. Is that correct?
Yes, we are looking for the author accepted manuscript version, and it can be as a PDF. You can also submit it as a Word document or a text file.
I'm seeing a question from Andrew Broadbent. He has two questions. Is it the corresponding author or the senior author who does this?
That depends on the authors on the paper who uploads it, and maybe it's somebody who isn't an author but is submitting other paperwork. Might be that point person to submit. It depends on how your team addresses it.
And their other question was, can we upload a PDF of the published manuscript with the journal's formatting, etc.?
We are accepting those. However, we do prefer the author accepted manuscript, and we will not be making those PDF versions available. So we'll have a copy and a citation available on PubAg, but it won't be accessible through PubAg. It'll be accessible through the publisher's website.
Daniel has a question. Doesn't the submission to PubAg cause any copyright issues with the journal publishers?
We are, as I've mentioned, there's an implementation plan, and we recently held some stakeholder listening sessions. We are actively discussing potential issues. And again, we're not making copyrighted versions available through PubAg right now. I hope that answers the question.
We have another question from Jack Deckers. If an project or study is the result of funding from multiple federal agencies, does this material need to be submitted separately for each agency?
At this time, yes. However, there are some interagency groups that we participate on where we're talking about sharing data to reduce burden. And to go up to one of Andrew's earlier questions, because this is related, about is there a way to link PubMed submissions if you've submitted to PubMed Central, for example, to PubAg, that is something that we are actively pursuing at this time, again, with the intention of reducing burden, but it's not in place. And once something changes, we will be sure to let the community know.
Yes, and Andrew's previous question was, is there a way to link PubMed publications to PubAg automatically so we don't have to do this manually? And that's what Christina was mentioning. We have a question from Jerry Cohen. Can you tell us the estimated increase in faculty burden time requirements that this is expected to require?
I don't have an answer for this one. I don't know if Alexis does or anyone else.
Alexis, do you have an answer?
Sorry, I was working through reading the Q&A, trying to respond by typing answers. Can you repeat which question we're responding to right now?
Yes, the question was from Jerry Cohen. Can you tell us the estimated increase in faculty burden time requirements that this is expected to require?
I'm not aware of an increased burden. I responded to a couple questions that our internal reporting systems at NIFA report, and the NIFA reporting system NRS specifically. We are currently working on a way to get the information entered in PubAg back into our system so that we can not have duplicate data entry happening. So we have more information that will be coming out on that, but we have gone through the proper process with OMB clearance in order to get that implemented. So we're going to try to make this efficient and effective so that there's not duplicate data entry happening, as what I can say now.
And I have another question from Jack Odell. When NIH did this for posting to PubMed, many journals submitted the information on behalf of the authors. Might this be possible for PubAg to minimize additional burden on authors?
Eventually, but not at the moment. We are aware of that capability within PubMed Central and have discussed it, but there's nothing implemented or changed at this point in time.
Thank you. We have a question from Anonymous. Is USDA working with journals to make their copyright policies less restrictive?
There have been discussions with some journals that I'm aware of. I don't know what those discussions have been specifically, but we are aware of concerns and are speaking with journal publishers.
Thank you. Another question from Anonymous. Oh, I see that Alexis is typing an answer. So I will skip on over to the next one. I see there is a question from George Dubovsky. If the paper is open access, why can we not submit? Can we still submit?
Yes, please, if it is published in an open access peer-reviewed journal, please submit the article. It's part of the regulation.
And I see another question from an anonymous attendee. Given that it has not been approved by publishers, are we risking copyright infringement?
We are not making the published publisher's version of record available through PubAg, but we do require a manuscript submission to PubAg. And there will be a citation in PubAg available, which again points to through the DOI to the publisher's version of record.
And I see that George has another question. If it is not clear who is responsible for submission, who is liable?
Alexis, are you able to answer this one?
I'm not really sure what they mean by liable, but I think you mentioned earlier, Christina, that all authors would be able to submit that information in PubAg. So if it's, as a result, if the publication is resulting from USDA support, then we would want, one of the authors to submit that into PubAg. If you have that digital object identifier, you can submit that information, and then there's a way to also plug in the information on ORCID for the other authors. So I'm not exactly sure what you mean by liable, but we're hoping that folks will try to, comply with this regulation, because the point is really to make sure that this information is publicly accessible, since it's funded with federal dollars.
Thank you. Andrew has another question. Sometimes manuscripts have minor edits after the proof stage, so the accepted Word document may change, but then the final manuscript is already formatted. We should still submit the accepted Word document, even if it has changes after proofs?
Yes. Well, we want the final accepted author manuscript, preferably even with the changes after proofs.
And there's another question from an anonymous attendee. Will there be intra-paper metadata associated with each submission for querying the data set and doing full text bibliometric research? Will semantic artifacts be used?
I'm not completely sure what is being asked. There is metadata associated with the citations, and they're available for searching in PubAg, sorry, and with our other database systems at the library.
We have another question from an anonymous attendee. What is the threshold for respected journals? How are you going to determine if a journal is predatory?
This is a policy discussion that's ongoing. We do have a list of journals that are included in our Agricola database, but we understand that many people are publishing in other journals, and so we're looking into more of that.
Thank you. I have another question from an anonymous attendee. Thank you for sharing the information. As someone who is not a faculty member, but rather work in communications and tasked with helping showcase faculty, is there a boot camp version or other webinars that may make sense for this group, particularly if you have never worked with this kind of program?
I would say stay tuned. We do offer quite a bit of programming through the National Agricultural Library, and we anticipate that there will be more related to public access and PubAg and Ag Data Commons going forward.
Thank you for the questions, everyone. I see that there are no other questions. Thank you for attending today. Alexis, is there anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Just thank you for attending. Please double check the chat for those links. And also you can visit the page that you registered on. It'll become a resource page with links and FAQs.
Thank you everyone for joining. I will be ending the webinar now, and there will be the PowerPoint and other training materials on the NIFA event page after we upload them, and be sure to return for more information there. Thank you, everyone.